getting through the hard part of training is sort of like getting through the hard part of relationships the first time. In a relationship, you decide either A, this is not worth the fight, or yeah, this is worth fighting for and building something that actually matters. And training is really the same way. You've got to get through this really hard, difficult, grindy, it's a challenge. And when you get through it, if you get through it on the other side, what you'll find is that you kind of end up in that level 3 of commitment, which is I'm in for life. You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
Welcome to the Barbell Logic Podcast. I'm Scott Hambrick, and that's Matt. Today, we're going to talk about when it gets hard.
Don't laugh.
It's our Getting Started series. I think this is number 8, you said, Matt?
I think it's number 8.
Yeah.
That's right. Getting close to the end.
The end is nigh.
Which is really what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Linear progression for novice is pretty darn easy, those first sessions. You know, if you started this 8 weeks ago when we started this Getting Started series, it's started to get hard for you, and
That's right.
you know what we mean when we say that it's not too hard in the beginning. If you just started listening to this and just started your LP, your second session will probably be about the hardest thing you've done in your life. But 6 to 8 weeks in, it's legit hard.
Yes. And
we have to find resources within ourselves to continue the training that we've never accessed before, probably, right?
Yeah.
And we have a show way back. I don't know when it was. Way back. It's called The Grind. You guys could go look it up. Yeah. I think it's episode 42. I've referred to it a whole lot.
No, it's way earlier than that.
Think so?
Oh, I bet it's in the first.
Okay, now 15. I got to go look it up.
All right.
Episode 27, Embracing the Grind. So you could go back and listen to Embracing the Grind, and then you can listen to another show that we did shortly after that about a clarification. Because we have found that when people get kind of late in linear progression, they have to do just that. They have to embrace the grind. I just had this talk with one of my clients yesterday, Matt. He's an LP. He's a 40-year-old man, approximately, of normal height and stature. He's where you'd want him to be on his weight for a guy doing LP. And he squatted 275, and he's like, Jesus, does it get harder? I'm like,
you're like, yeah.
I'm like, well, yes and no. For me, I squatted 275. I remember I was like, holy crap, that's heavy.
Sure.
And then everything past that has kind of been the same. Like the pressure on my back and on my feet is more, but it's just more of the same.
Yeah. So I think there is if you've come to the point that things are getting really hard, then I think the first thing we do is we need to step back and say, hey, congratulations. You're doing something that 99.99% of the population will never do.
Yeah.
They are never going to get to the point where it actually gets hard. They're not, because here in another month, you're going to have all the New Year's resolutioners, and they're going to go walk on a treadmill and read a magazine. That's their New Year's resolution, and that's not hard. And we talk a lot on this podcast about the ideas of voluntary hardship. And you can't really understand what that is and the impact that it has on you until you get through this point. So the first 6 to 8 weeks, certainly the first 6 weeks of linear progression, isn't usually very hard. Now, it may be the hardest thing you've ever done, and you might be 3 weeks in listening to this or 4 weeks in listening to this and be like, man, I don't know, it feels pretty hard. No, you don't know yet. Hard is coming, and that's okay. That's right. We keep adding a little more. And eventually, 7 weeks in, 9 weeks in, somewhere in there, it starts getting really hard. And that's a big deal, but it's a good thing, right? Like that's where we really start to see ourselves refined by this process. And so the first thing that you mentioned is we do have to learn how to grind through the weights. Now, I want to be clear. We don't want you to grind every rep of every work set for the rest of your life. That is not the goal, right? At some point, that will actually beat you up to the point that you cannot recover and you can't make progress. But there is a point in time towards the end, or as you approach the end of LP, where everything is going to feel kind of grindy, especially the last reps of the last work sets.
And it's not necessarily that they are grindy. It's that you're learning what that means.
That's
it's going to
right.
require levels of effort to complete your 3 sets of 5 or your 1 set of 5 deadlifts that you are not accustomed to putting out. A deadlift. Let's talk about the deadlift, Matt, and what the grinding,
Sure.
what effortfulness looks like in the deadlift. Let's not say grind anymore for the rest of the show.
Sure.
Effortfulness. A guy may get to a 335 deadlift. And up until then, he's a fairly big dude. Let's say he's 6'3", and weighs 240. He was a little fluffy when he started LP. He's 33 years old, and he gets to a 335 deadlift. And up until then, he could kind of set his back, rock back just a tad, and push the floor and lock the thing out. And 315 sounds pretty heavy for some people, but for this guy, it wasn't.
Except to him, it was still the heaviest thing he had ever
It was a
up.
PR.
So it did, in his brain, feel heavy.
And it is.
So, but when you say that it wasn't really heavy to him, explain what that means, because it wasn't. It wasn't really heavy.
It didn't take even 70% of mental focus, and it didn't take a full life and death effort to get it to go.
That's right.
When he gets to this new weight, let's say it's this 335, he has to set his back. He has to pull his chest up so hard that he's afraid of aneurysm.
Right.
And he has to use 95% of his mental power to maintain the tension in his back. And then he has to push the floor away. And it might take him 10 full seconds to stand up with it. It might take 1, 2, 3 before it comes off the ground. Matt's fond of telling people, I need 5 full effort,
5 full seconds of grind.
5 full seconds of effort on this before you give up on it. So we see
and
it
I'll
all
usually
the time.
count out loud. If I'm in person, I'll usually count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, right? And when you get to 3 or 2, they finish the rep, and then they realize, like, oh, that was only 3 seconds. You're like, well, that wasn't that hard, was it? Mm-hmm. It felt hard, right? So I also want to be careful because I want to validate how it felt, right? So sometimes we can, in this industry, will sort of crap on people's feelings. I can remember my mom in her mid-60s deadlifting 100 pounds for the very first time. And there was a mental hurdle for her to overcome to deadlift 100 pounds for the very first time. And when she picked it up, the bar moved just as smooth as 90 pounds, right? It was fat. It was quick. But at the top, she's like, oh my gosh, it was so heavy. She actually said that to me at the top, which first off, if you can get all those words out, it probably wasn't that heavy. But, and then she set it down. And what she meant was, it's the heaviest thing I've ever felt.
Yep.
And that's true. It was the heaviest thing she's ever felt. She'd probably never picked up 100 pounds before in her whole life. She'd probably never picked up 100 pounds when she was 22, let alone 65. So it did feel heavy for her. But a
and
coach
in fact,
can
it
look
was.
at it, it felt that way, right? And it was a PR, so it was the most. But I'm looking at bar speed often to say whether it was really heavy or not, right? And so one of the things that I'll often do with my clients online, a benefit of having online clients is that as an online client, you have to actually video yourself. And you'll be forced to watch those videos of yourself lifting. Even if you don't have an online coach like us, you should still video yourself and see if you can take your emotions out of it. When you watch the video, just watch the bar speed.
Yep.
And then you tell me, how hard was it? How heavy was it? Because what you'll often find is the way it felt and the way it looked are two completely different things. It felt really heavy, but it didn't really look that heavy. It looked okay. It moved pretty smooth with decent bar speed. So I'm often looking at that bar speed as a coach. I'm also doing the same thing as a lifter for myself, even video myself and watching that bar speed. So
yeah, the time, I don't know, man. When you got a heavy bar on your back, it's like you're in a time machine.
yeah,
You're like, oh my God, that set. Oh, that was at least 41 minutes.
Right.
And then you look at it, and it took you 39 seconds from walkout to walking back in.
That's right. That's right.
So even when you're counting for yourself, when you're down there in the hole of that deadlift, trying to give yourself a full 5 seconds of effort, you'll tend to rush it. So here's what we see when we realize that somebody needs to learn how to be more effortful. Their deadlift is up in that moderately heavy range, and something changes, and they push against the floor, and then they just stand up. It wouldn't move.
Right.
They just kind of, and then just stand up. It wouldn't go. It was glued to the floor, and then I have to tell them, listen, dude, it's pretty heavy, but last week you did 5 pounds less than this. You've got it, but you got to give it 5 full seconds, because when you push against the floor, this is so heavy that it has to compress all the little bones in your feet. It has to compress the meniscus in your knee. It has to compress all the disc between your vertebrae. It has to lengthen your arms. Stretch your wrist out. Take the slack out of the bar. The bar, in fact, is even going to bend, and then the bar can come off the ground. And that takes time. Right. Give it time. Coil the spring. Give it time. Now let's go. 5, 4, 3, and they lock it out.
Yeah, I've even done that with you in person, right? Like I've been in your garage watching you try to deadlift, 465 or something heavy, and having a countdown, right? I've done the same thing for your wife. I've done the same thing for my wife, and I've asked people who are coaching me to do the same thing to me. Yep. Don't let me give up on this early. And so I want to be clear. We're not talking about
you being a pussy.
Yeah, we're not talking right, and we're not talking about you literally grinding until you poop your pants every rep. Like there is a day where those sort of things might occur as a competitive lifter down the road. This is getting started series, right? Like, I also be clear, the example you used was a 335 deadlift for a pretty good sized guy.
Yep.
There are lots of people out there that deadlift 700 pounds and over. So we're not talking about a truly we are pushing the limits of human strength here. We're talking about way less than half of the limits of human strength. We're talking about heavy to you. And that's okay, right? That's a big deal. And it's something that we congratulate. Every time our clients set a PR, we celebrate that. It literally doesn't matter if that's a 55-pound deadlift or a 700-pound deadlift. We celebrate it the same because a PR is a PR. Yep. And in those first 6 weeks, the PRs come pretty easy. And then the second 6 weeks, the PRs come much harder. That's the deal. But when the PRs still come, we still celebrate those things, right? And so in order to get the PRs to still come in the second 6 weeks, we have to learn how to grind, and we have to learn how to get through the hard part. It's very rare that someone who buys into this idea of strength training and the value that it has on their life, it's very rare for them to quit in the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But a lot of them quit in weeks 7 through 12 because it's the first time that it really gets hard, and they've never had to do anything truly physically difficult in their entire life.
Yeah. And at that point, you just have to dig. You have to dig down, and hopefully you've got good training partners or a good coach, and they can help encourage you and help you kind of recalibrate or relearn just what kind of effort you can do. You get to actually teach yourself more about what you're capable of.
That's right. As you watch, I have this written down in some kind of bulleted points for notes for the show. You just addressed them. Most of you in this first 6 to 8 weeks are going to be doing this on your own. And it's important that you video yourself and you watch the bar speed so you can see how hard it is. But it's when it starts getting hard that it's really important to have the right atmosphere. And that often includes meaning you need to have a training partner or a workout partner that can encourage you, that you can be accountable to, that can sometimes just be a cheerleader, right? That's not the same thing as a coach.
Just count. 5, 4,
right.
Don't give up. 2.
That's right. Most personal trainers are only that.
Yeah.
They are just cheerleaders. But there is value in that, right? But this is also probably a good time to get a coach. And whether that means hiring an online coach from Barbell Logic, or whether that means finding a good coach in your town, or whether that means going to find a group of like-minded people that train like you and training with them on like a Saturday morning once or twice a month. Like you guys do that all the time at your house. You know, Brett McKay goes over, he's got a heavy lift. Every time Brett has to try to set PRs at this point, he usually goes to your house to try to set the PRs because he knows if he's going to have to set those PRs in his own cold garage by himself, there's much less chance of hitting them. But in the right atmosphere with good workout partners and good coaches, it changes everything, right?
Yep.
And so I just joined a gym. I have a real gym, like a real strength gym where people train correctly, just a few blocks from my house. I didn't even know it existed a few blocks from my house. And I love it to train at home. I love training at home. Love it. But once or twice a week, I need to be able to go up there and lift heavy in an atmosphere where people will encourage me and cheer me on. It's not competitive to the point of being cutthroat. I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm 40 years old. But I need people who can cheer me on when it comes time to lift heavy. And you'll need that too, right? So in that second 6 weeks, it's really important to stick with it. And here's what I've found. I've said this on the podcast before, but I haven't said this on this series, Scott. I equate this training life cycle often to, I will compare it to relationships, even like romantic relationships in your life, right? Where your first 6 weeks of training or your first even 4 weeks of training or so, it's sort of like when you first start dating somebody and you're just kind of like test driving the thing. Is this something that I want to do? Right? You're smiling. I meant that in a completely moral sense, right? You're just like, you don't know. You don't know if you're like, you're not in love with this person yet, right? And then you get to kind of the puppy love stage and you freaking love it. And that usually for training, that usually happens like week 3 through week 7. Because you're setting PRs like crazy and
getting
like
stronger than ever.
Stronger than ever, and you're putting 5 pounds on the bar every single workout, and you love it. Nothing's too hard, and nothing hurts yet. Everything's fine. And that's kind of that level 2 of the relationship. It's that puppy love stage. It's infatuation. It's really what it is. For a lot of people in the fitness world and training world, and they do this in 3rd week of January, 4th week of January, they buy all the clothes, and they buy the shoes, and buy the socks, and buy the shirts, and buy the shorts, and they're checking in on Facebook every day at their gym, and they're all in, kind of burning the candle at both ends. Getting through the hard part of training is sort of like getting through the hard part of relationships the first time. And as you get through the hard part in a relationship, you decide either A, this is not worth the fight and I'm done, or yeah, this is worth fighting for and building something that actually matters. And training is really the same way. You've got to get through this really hard, difficult, grindy, it's a challenge. And when you get through it, if you get through it on the other side, what you'll find is that you kind of end up in that level 3 of commitment, which is like, I'm in for life. This isn't a thing that I'm doing. This isn't a phase for this season. This is something that I'm going to do all the way through. And so that's why it's so important to us to get people through that kind of week 12, week 13, week 14. That's when it really gets tough. And if people get through those weeks, they're usually in. They're in often for life.
Yeah. It's just going to require more effort than you're used to. And again, to clarify, we're not going to do this to you for the rest of your days. We just want to take our big guy that we were talking about from his 335 deadlift, where he says it's glued down, but we cheer him on and we count for him, and he locks the thing out and he finishes the whole set in 19 seconds.
Right.
We just want to go ahead and get that extra. That gentleman may have another 50 to 75 pounds to put on his deadlift, and just learning to dig down deep and learning that it takes more effort than he was accustomed to will get him there. That's all. That's all we want for him. And we want to help him learn that. We want to help people learn that and learn how to do that on their own. So if you're in your LP, it tends to happen on deadlift. And the other one it happens on is press. For ladies, it'll happen on bench press. They'll unrack it. You'll help them unrack it. You'll turn loose of it. They'll lower it. And they'll just, get it off at me, get it off.
Yeah, right. It just sits on their chest.
Yeah.
That's right.
But normally it's in the it's in the press or on the deadlift. The press, people will take it out. They'll the rack. They'll walk it out. They'll push. It'll go up to their mouth. It'll fly up to maybe their eye level or something like that, and then they just
comes right back
it
down. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The squat is the one that maybe even feels the heaviest, but people tend to bail on it the least because there's something scary about going down to the bottom of a squat and being like, no.
Yep.
There's something like deep in our instinct over thousands of years of evolutionary biology that have taught us like, you got to keep pushing against this thing. And so we do. A deadlift is on the floor, right? So there's nothing to lose. Like in the bottom of a squat, if you decide I can't get up, I've got to do something with that bar that's on my back. But on a deadlift, the bar's just sitting on the floor already. And so this is the first one where you'll often see people give up. And so they'll start to pull on it and they'll be like, nope, too heavy. You'll be like, whoa. It's not too heavy. I know because I watched the deadlift 2 days ago that you did that was only 5 pounds less or 2.5 pounds less or whatever it was. And you did that one just fine. And so this is between your ears. You're going to have to get mentally tough. You're going to have to maybe get mad at the barbell a little bit. And you're going to have to give me that 5 seconds of effort to get through the thing. And they do.
So if you're there, the deadlift was stuck to the ground. Or the press, you pressed last week and it went just fine. It was hard, but it went just fine. And then this week you took it out and you couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Today's the day. So for for the deadlift, you're going to pull your chest up as hard as you can. You're going to set your back harder than ever. And you're going to push the floor away and you're going to do it for a 5 count. You're going to video yourself. And then if you fail, well, either way, you're going to watch your video. And if you failed, count to see if your 5 count was accurate. You may need to count to 10 if you don't have a training partner.
That's right, because you'll count fast.
You need to feel the bar stretch in your hands. You need to feel the plates slide on the ground. You need to be feeling for all of that. And it takes a while to learn, to be able to feel what's going on in the deadlift because it's so effortful.
Yeah.
It takes a while for people to learn how. In the baseball world, I have been told that batters can see the ball and see the stitches and know what the pitch is.
Right. And the fingers, the way the pitcher's holding the ball.
Well, that takes a lot of familiarity with what the heck is going on there to be able to see that. I shot a lot of sporting clays and skied at one point, and I got to the point that I could keep my eyes open and I could see the shot cloud come out of the shotgun, and I could see where the shot cloud went.
Mm.
Well, you get to the point in the deadlift when you've got enough practice that you can feel how much flex is in the bar. You can feel what the bushings in the bar are doing. You can feel, if the bar is very, very whippy, think of a whippy bar like a noodle, and it's laying on the floor in the plates, and it's pulled out completely flat. It looks like a bar, but it's super heavy on the end.
Like a piece of bamboo, maybe. Like
a piece of bamboo.
Bamboo. Right.
So when you start pushing against the floor, it's going to start bowing. And when that bamboo bar starts bowing, the plates have to get closer together. The ends of the bar get closer together when the bar bows.
That's right.
Well, eventually, you'll learn how to push so hard and be so present to what's going on, you can feel those plates scooting in. And all of those things that you can feel, the bar bending in your hands, the plates scooting in, going bump, 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 bump along the floor, all those things, and you can feel it on your shins, and you can know it's up your shin farther than it was when you started. All those things are cues to let you know it's not glued to the floor. It is moving. It's just slow, and you're still in the game. And then you can stay with it. You might even need to correct something, right? Oh, I'm getting on my heels. You might even need to correct something, but being aware of what's happening, feeling the progress in the lift, lets you know that you're still in the game. It'll help you lock it out. It takes a while to get there, though, but that's what you should be feeling. When you jump up and turn loose the bar and say, I was glued to the ground, and you go check the weight to see if you'd misloaded it, you weren't patient enough. You weren't feeling it.
That's right. Yeah, so if this is you and you've followed this Getting Started series and you're in sort of week 7 or week 8 or wherever that is, and the weights are really starting to get hard, first off, congratulations. It's a great place to be. You're in a place that you've never been before, and you're learning things you'll never have to learn again.
Well, wait a minute.
Well,
I have to learn that shit on the rack pull.
every time you do
not every single time, but I'll kind of get away from rack pulls and then I'll come back.
Yeah.
And boy, they take a long time to move,
break off. They do. You got to pull and pull and pull and pull. And part of that is because they're sitting on the pins. And so those weights are getting closer together, but you don't feel it.
Yep.
Because the weights aren't on the floor. They're dangling outside the safety pins.
It's already bowed when you touch it.
That's right. And then it bows and then continues to bow a little more, but you don't feel that bow as much. So you got to learn how to grind. You got to learn how to work through the hard stuff. And when you do that, that's where the refinement from the voluntary hardship comes in. My first strategic, practical move is to make sure that as it starts to get hard, you video yourself on all of your lifts. You can delete them off your phone as soon as you're done with the workout. It's for you to watch after each set so you can see what the bar speed looks like. So you can start, it will calibrate in your own brain what hard really is. Because you'll think to yourself it's really hard, and then you watch the bar speed and you're like, well, that actually didn't move as slow as it felt. Felt like it moved super slow, but it didn't. From that step, you really need to make sure that you've got a good atmosphere to train in. You've got a workout partner that can cheer you on, somebody who's encouraging, understands what you need. And the best step that you can take is to get a coach, to hire a coach. And I want to be careful trying to sell. This isn't about just selling coaching. If you've got a great person in your town that is a coach, you should hire them. Go see somebody that works for Barbell Logic or another great coach. See them in person every once in a while. But if you're somebody that doesn't have access to a good coach in person, you can hire a coach through Barbell Logic Online Coaching. We'd love to coach you. You don't have to have a coach to learn how to grind. You don't. I'd love to say that you do.
A good partner, a good training partner would go a long way.
A good training partner will do that. That's exactly right. But for a lot of you, you're going to want a coach. You're going to want the accountability. And you start getting to the point where when it starts getting hard, that a coach becomes extremely valuable because in the beginning, a coach is really there to correct your form. Your form is a mess, and they're correcting your form. But the weight's not that heavy, so once you get through those big major form issues, what I find with most of my clients is like the first 2 weeks we're correcting all sorts of form problems, and then weeks 2 to 3 through week 6, form is just pretty good. And then they get to week like 7 and 8, and it starts getting like form starts breaking down because the weight is heavy. And so when it starts getting hard, a coach really earns their money by really fixing those form breakdowns because of the weight, but also they start to make steps for you, minimum effective dose steps in your programming to change your programming. And that's when programming starts getting difficult. Most clients, most people in general, change their programming too quickly. Don't you agree?
Yep.
It starts getting hard and they're like, I got to change this. It's not working. No, it's probably working fine. And you need a coach or a workout partner who knows enough to say, no, you're still making progress. You're still adding a little weight to the bar every session. You're doing just fine. It's just getting hard. And that's okay, right?
You need a guide.
You need a guide.
Yeah. So if you're working on LP and you think it's over and it's time for a change, but you haven't had these experiences we're talking about where you push for 5 full seconds and nothing happens. I mean, really push like the end of the world's coming. If you haven't had those sort of experiences, then you're just not giving it enough effort, and there's still more to be gotten there. If you go to my Instagram, I'm Crappy Lifter.
Which is what, by the way?
It's Instagram. At Scott_Silverstrength. There, you can go scroll back through there and see some 12-second deadlifts, some 12-second press PRs. You know, I'm just not explosive, and you can see some that are just really slow, and I can't do them fast, but you can see what some really effortful work looks like. I'll tell you another, somebody who's really, really strong who actually goes for it and gives it their all for seconds on end is Jordan Stanton. A lot of really strong guys are super explosive. And you'll see this in meets, and they'll try a squat, they'll get 6 inches out of the hole, and then they just set it down. Jordan if Jordan set one down, it was full effort the whole way.
Yep.
Even if it was moving down, and you could see from him what a full effort lift looks like. Nikki Sims, you can see some really, really hard, slow deadlifts with her.
Yep. I was even thinking, even Brett. I've got a video of Brett McKay, and he has it on his Instagram on Art of Manliness as well, of him pulling his 605 earlier this year, and it ain't that hard. It's hard. It's slow, especially the top, and the look on his face says it's real hard. But if you watch the bar speed, it moves okay, and he gets to the top. I'm looking at it right now. He gets to the top of that 605 deadlift, and boy, you can see that bar bowing.
Yeah,
so much bow in the bar, and it's just, the more bow the bar has, the longer it's going to take to break off the ground anyway, because a lot of that first few seconds of pulling is just going to pull the bow out of the bar. It's going to pull that flex out.
It's such an advantage, isn't it? That's the thing.
Oh my gosh!
As this gets heavier, sort of pound for
you get
pound,
in a better and better position.
Gets easier.
Yeah, you get in a better position. Speaking of, this is the Getting Started series, but I have the Ohio deadlift bar at home, and the new gym that I joined also has the Ohio deadlift bar, but they also have the Texas deadlift bar. Is that the one you have at home?
I have an Okie deadlift bar, which is even
you have
whippier.
An Okie. It's interesting. That Texas is so much more whippier than the Ohio. I had to pull like a full extra second and a half on just 500 pounds. It wasn't even that. I mean, 500 is decently heavy, but for me, it's not that heavy. I pulled it for a set of 5. But I mean, I had to pull on it for like an extra second and a half to get it to finish pulling the flex out.
My shanks are long. That Okie deadlift bar, I legit can get
Almost
it to the tibial
knees.
tuberosity before the bar comes off the ground if there's 500 on it.
That's wild.
Like it could pull 8 inches almost out
So
of
think
it.
about that. So you've got to pull long enough to bend steel 2, 3, 3.5 inches of bend on steel before the weight will come off the ground. That's what we mean when we say learn how to grind.
Yep.
Not grind. You got 3 sets of 5. You grind all 15 reps. They're all 6 seconds long on your squat. That's not what we're talking about, right? And we're also not talking about doing that for the rest of your career. As a matter of fact, the most grindy training of your entire career. I didn't want me to say the word grind, but I said it like 9 more times in this episode. But the most grindy training you're ever going to do is at the end of linear progression, because you're going to grind every session.
It's hard and effortful, guys, but it's worth it.
That's right.
And you'll learn something new about yourself, because before you did this, if something was that heavy, you'd go get a friend.
That's right.
You can't.
Now you don't have
we
to.
can't do that. The mindset has to change. There's episode number 8. What are we going to talk about for number 9?
I think we're going to try to have Jillian on for a complete sort of nutrition for beginners, because I think it's just such a valuable. We talked about it a little bit on the recovery session, on the recovery piece. What else do you want to talk about?
I want to do one about getting started for older people.
Okay. Yeah, I like that for seniors.
Yeah, because it's
masters athletes,
yeah,
as Dr. Sullivan talks about.
It's a little different. It's not much different, but it's a little different, and I think it'd be useful for people to hear about what we would do for people who are maybe we could say challenged athletes. It could be people with like hip replacements, or maybe like very, very obese. But there's some special cases. We don't change LP.
Kind of special populations.
Yeah, we don't change LP much for people, but there's some stuff we could say that could be.
If you're over 50, if you're significantly obese, if you've got major injuries in your background.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to do it. Because I think this is for our listeners that listen to Barbell Logic all the time, and they want to share it with somebody. Almost everybody thinks that they're a special population. I don't want to use the word snowflake, but almost everybody in this world thinks they are one in the beginning, and you're not.
No.
Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to make a few changes sometimes. Sometimes we do. So we'll talk through that.
But whoever you are, you're going to get a whole lot stronger if you don't give up on yourself. If I'm your coach, I'm not going to give up on you. You're the problem. And if you don't give up on yourself, you're going to get a whole lot stronger. I don't care who you are or what you've been through or what's wrong with you or what you think is wrong with you. You're much more robust and you're able to get much, much stronger than you expect.
Absolutely.
Now, that being said, Matt, every now and then I'll get a young guy that has like zero talent, and he's like, let's go for that 405 bench press. I'm like, we'll talk about that after a little while.
Let's get that 185 bench press first.
Yep.
And then we'll go for that 405. So That's good. Hey, guys, thanks for listening to this Getting Started series. Got a couple more left for you, and then we'll wrap this one up, and we'll probably do a few more series. We'll do some topical podcasts moving forward, but these shorter, we'll probably do shorter series. We'll do maybe like a shorter series on programming coming up. New Year's, we'll do a series entirely.
Epstein not killing himself.
Yeah, Epstein, who definitely didn't kill himself. We can do a series with Jillian and Jeremy and our nutrition coaches on nutrition for New Year's.
Yeah.
Kind of an overview on nutrition there. So if you're interested in a series of Barbell Logic podcast, you can email us at questions@barbell-logic.com and put in the subject line, put series, and we'll take a series. If you are one of those people who are starting to grind and things are getting hard and you're like, I don't know how hard this actually is. I don't know if I should make changes to my programming. I don't know if my form is where it needs to be and it's starting to get hard and grindy. And you just want to get the eyes of an expert coach on you totally for free, no questions asked, no hard sell. You can just email experience@barbell-logic.com. And one of our amazing coaches, who will probably be Nikki Berman because she's fantastic, will reach out to you, have you send her your videos, and then she'll do a call with you and share her screen, and she'll break down what she sees. So sort of the same way, football sportscasters, John Madden, break down the X's and O's of a football game. She will break down the X's and O's of your lifts and answer any questions you have about programming. So you can send her an email at experience@barbell-logic.com. Again, if you have ideas for series, send it to questions@barbell-logic.com. Any questions you have for Scott and I that you want us to answer about getting started and struggles that you might be having, feel free to send the same email there to questions@barbell-logic.com.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Send this show to a friend and stay tuned for more in the Getting Started series. We'll talk to you guys soon.
I'm taking diarrhea every time.